but I don't want to be. They're fighting for 1,000 years. They're fighting for centuries. I want to bring our soldiers back home, but I do want to secure the oil. If you read about the history of Donald Trump, I was a civilian. I had absolutely nothing to do with going into Iraq, and I was totally against it. But I always used to say, if they're going to go in, nobody cared that much, but it got written about. If they're going to go in, I'm sure you've heard the statement, because I met it more than any human being alive. If they're going into Iraq, keep the oil. They never did. They never did. I know Lindsey Graham had a bill where basically we would have been paid back for all of the billions of dollars that we've spent, many, many billions of dollars. I mean, I hate to say it, it's actually trillions of dollars, but many, many billions of dollars. And by one vote, they were unable to get that approved in the Senate. They had some pretty big opposition from people that shouldn't have opposed, like a president, and they weren't able. If you did that, Iraq would be a much different story today, because they would be owing us a lot of money. They would be treating us much differently. But I will say Iraq was very good with respect to the raid last night.
Sir, just to pin down the timing a little bit better here, you got back to the White House around 4:30 yesterday afternoon. Did you immediately go to the Situation Room?
Well, I knew all about this for 3 days.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we thought for 3 days this is what was going to happen. It was actually, look, nobody was even hurt. Our canine, as I call it a dog, a beautiful dog, a talented dog, was injured and brought back. But we had no soldier injured. And they did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you'd think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in? The fact is that they blasted their way into the house in a very heavy wall, and it took them literally seconds. By the time those things went off, they had a beautiful big hole, and they ran in, and they got everybody by surprise. Unbelievably brilliant as fighters. I can't imagine there could be anybody better. And these, as you know, are our top operations people.
And Baghdadi apparently had been in bad health for some time. Was there any indication of that?
Well, we don't know that, but he was the last one out, and his people had either been killed, which there were many, or gave up and came out. Because with the 11 children that came out, we were able to do that. We don't know if they were his children. They might have been. But as I said, 3 died in the tunnel. And the tunnel collapsed with the explosion. But you had other fighters coming out also, and they're being brought back. They're right now, we have them imprisoned.
I was going to ask whose children they were, but do you remember what time you went into the Situation Room?
Well, I started at 5 o'clock. We were pretty much gathered at 5 o'clock yesterday. We were in contact all day long through hopefully secure phones. I'll let you know tomorrow, but nothing seemed to leak, so I guess they were secure for a change. But we gathered more or less at 5. The attack started moments after that. The liftoff started moments after that. Again, the element of attack that they were most afraid of was getting from our base into that compound, because there's tremendous firepower that we were, flying over. And I won't go into it, but you had a very big Russian presence in one area. You had a Turkish presence. You had a Syrian presence. And you're flying low. It's very dangerous. And there were shots made, but we think these were people that were shooting, that were indiscriminately shooting. The helicopters took some shots, but we think that these were people that were just random people that don't like to see helicopters, I guess.
Mr. President, was there any kind of DNA test done?
So that's another part of the genius of these people. They have his DNA, more of it than they want even. And they brought it with them with lab technicians who were with them. And they assumed that this was Baghdadi. They thought visually it was him, but they assumed it was him, and they did an on-site test. They got samples. And to get to his body, they had to remove a lot of debris because the tunnel had collapsed. But these people are very good at that. And they, as I said, they brought body parts back with them, et cetera, et cetera. There wasn't much left. The vest blew up, but there are still substantial pieces that they brought back. So they did an on-site test because we had to know this. And it was a very quick call that took place about 15 minutes after he was killed, and it was positive. This is a confirmation, sir.
There was also a report that his wife, had detonated, or one of his wives had detonated a vest.
So there were two women. Both wives, both wearing vests. They had not detonated, but the fact that they were dead and they had vests on made it very difficult for our men, because they had vests on, and it made it very difficult for our men, because you never know what's going to happen. They're lying, they're dead, they never detonated, but they were dead.
On the successor, the possible successors, have you been briefed on who?
Yeah, we know the successors, and we've already got them in our sights, and we'll tell you that right now, but we know the successors. Hamza bin Laden was a big thing, but this is the biggest there is. This is the worst ever. Osama bin Laden was very big, but Osama bin Laden became big with the World Trade Center. This is a man who built a whole, as he would like to call it, a country, a caliphate, and was trying to do it again. And I had not heard too much about his health. I've heard stories about he may not have been in good health, but he died in a ruthless, vicious manner, that I can tell you.
Prisoners taken, sir? Were there any adults taken?
Yes, we have people that were taken. We have many of the people died on the site, but we have people that were taken, yes. And the children, we left them under care of somebody that we understand.
Many, or do you believe that
11
these were all-
children.
11 children. How many adults?
I'd rather not say. I'd leave that to the generals, but a small group. More dead than alive.
Which operations teams were involved? Which special operations teams were involved?
Many of them, and at the top level, and people that were truly incredible at their craft. I've never seen anything like it.
And were there, as far as partnerships goes, were there any other forces involved, or was this only American troops
No,
in this
only
raid?
American forces.
Did the U.S.
Only American forces, but we were given great cooperation.
Did the U.S. rely
We
on...
told the Russians we're coming in because we had to go over them. And they were curious, but we said we're coming.
For,
And we said one way or the other, "Yeah, look, we're coming." But they were very cooperative. They really were good. And we did say it would be a mission that they'd like, too, because, you know, again, they hate ISIS as much as we do.
For intel purposes, was there any foreign intel that proved useful along the way in this operation?
So we had our own intel. We got very little help. We didn't need very much help. We have some incredible people. When we use our intelligence correctly, what we can do is incredible. When we waste our time with intelligence, that hurts our country because we had poor leadership at the top. That's not good. But I've gotten to know many of the intel people, and I will say that they are spectacular. Now, they're not going to want to talk about it. They want to keep it quiet, the last thing they want, because these are great patriots. But the people that I've been dealing with are incredible people, and it's really a deserving name, intelligence. I've dealt with some people that aren't very intelligent, having to do with intel. But this is the top people, and it was incredible. It was flawless, and it was very complicated. But so I do appreciate Russia, Turkey, Iraq, and Syria to an extent, because, you know, we're flying into Syria, a lot of Syrian people with lots of guns. So we had good cover for probably the most dangerous part. It would not sound to, you know, when you fly in, it doesn't sound like that would be the most dangerous when you're going into shooting nests and all of the things that happened once they broke into that pretty powerful compound. That was a very strong compound. And as I said, had tunnels. But the most dangerous part, we had great cooperation with. Yes, ma'am?
Inform Speaker Pelosi ahead of time?
No, I didn't. I didn't do that. I wanted to make sure this kept secret. I don't want to have men lost and women. I don't want to have people lost.
Do you anticipate inviting the Special Forces teams to the White House after
Oh, yeah,
this?
they'll be invited. I don't know if they'll want to have their faces shown, to be honest with you. You know, they're incredible for the country. They're not looking for public relations, but they love doing what they're doing. I've seen it. First Lady was out there recently looking at what they do. She came back, she said, wow, I've never seen anything like that. The training, you know, all of the training and the power of the people, the men and women, the strength, the physical strength, the mental strength. These are incredible people. These are very unique individuals.
You mentioned whimpering. Did you hear that on your video hookup? Mentioned the whimpering of Baghdadi.
I don't want to talk about it, but he was screaming, crying, and whimpering. And he was scared out of his mind. And think of James Foley. Think of Kayla. Think of the things he did to Kayla. What he did to Foley and so many others. And for those people that say, oh, isn't this a little violent? Think of how many times have you seen men, I think in all cases men for the most part, but in terms of this, where you see the orange suits and you see the ocean and they're beheaded. Or how many of you got to see, because it was out there, the Jordanian pilot whose plane went down, they captured him, they put him in a cage and they set him on fire. And the King of Jordan actually attacked very powerfully when that happened. They've never seen a thing like that. But he set him on fire. This was Al-Baghdadi, and you should never, ever, hopefully, see a thing like that again. Now, there'll be new people emerge, but this was the worst of this particular world. This was the worst. Probably, in certain ways, the smartest. He was also a coward, and he didn't want to die. But think of it, everybody was out, and we were able to search him down and find him in the tunnel. We knew the tunnel existed, and that's where he was.
And you've taken a lot of heat for the Syria pullout. Do you think this will change the standing, your standing?
Well, I don't have a Syria pullout. I just don't want to guard Turkey and Syria for the rest of our lives. I mean, I don't want to do it. It's very expensive. It's very dangerous. They've been fighting for centuries. I don't want to have my people, 2,000 men and women, or 1,000, or 28. We had 28 guards. I said, I don't want them there anyway. I don't want them. Now, I will secure the oil. That happens to be in a certain part, but that's tremendous money involved. I would love to, you know, the oil in, I mean, I'll tell you a story in Iraq. So they spent, President Bush went in. I strongly disagreed with it, even though it wasn't my expertise at the time, but I have a very good instinct about things. They went in, and I said, that's a tremendous mistake. And there were no weapons of mass destruction. It turned out I was right. I was right for other reasons, but it turned out, on top of everything else, they had no weapons of mass destruction, because that would be a reason to go in, but they had none. But I heard recently that Iraq, over the last number of years, actually discriminates against America in oil leases. In other words, some oil companies from other countries, after all we've done, have an advantage in Iraq for the oil. I said, keep the oil. Give them what they need. Keep the oil. Why should we go in, we lose thousands of lives, spend trillions of dollars, and our companies don't even have an advantage in getting the oil leases. So I just tell you that story. That's what I heard.
Did Gina Haspel play a role in this? Can you talk a little bit about that? And I saw your NSC counterterrorism director out in the hallway. Was there a role with NSC
Yes.
counterterrorism?
Everybody. Gina was great. Everybody played a role.
And just
Joe was great. Gina was great. They were all good.
Just to follow up, did your Syria pullout, did that generate the intelligence that led to this operation?
No. We were looking at this. Look, as I said, Steve, I've been looking at this, I'm here almost 3 years. I've been looking at this for 3 years. They'd come in, sir, we have somebody under, I said, I don't want somebody. I want Al-Baghdadi. That's the one I want. They'd say, well, we have somebody else. I said, that's great, fine. Take him out. But I want Al-Baghdadi. That's who I want. I don't want other people. And then I also wanted Hamza bin Laden, because he's a young man, around 30, looks just like his father, tall, very handsome, and he was talking bad things just like his father. You know, if you read my book, there was a book just before the World Trade Center came down, and I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay, I never do. But here we are. I wrote a book, a really very successful book, and in that book, about a year before the World Trade Center was blown up, I said, there is somebody named Osama bin Laden. You better kill him or take him out. Something to that effect. He's big trouble. Now, I wasn't in government. I was building buildings and doing what I did, but I always found it fascinating. But I saw this man, tall, handsome, very charismatic, making horrible statements about wanting to destroy our country. And I'm writing a book. I think I wrote 12 books. All did very well. And I'm writing a book. World Trade Center had not come down. I think it was about, if you check, it was about a year before the World Trade Center came down. And I'm saying to people, take out Osama bin Laden, that nobody ever heard of. Nobody ever heard of. I mean, Al-Baghdadi, everybody hears because he's built this monster for a long time. But nobody ever heard of Osama bin Laden until really the World Trade Center. But about a year, you'll have to check it, a year and a half before the World Trade Center came down, the book came out. I was talking about Osama bin Laden. I said, you have to kill him, you have to take him out. Nobody listened to me. And to this day, I get people coming up to me. They said, you know what, one of the most amazing things I've ever seen about you is that you predicted that Osama bin Laden had to be killed before he knocked down the World Trade Center. It's true. Now, most of the press doesn't want to write that, but, you know, but it is true. If you go back, look at my book, I think it was The America We Deserve. I made a prediction, and I let's put it this way, if they would have listened to me, a lot of things would have been different.
Talk about some of the difficult decisions you had along the way here in this operation. Was anything that weighed on you or that you had to...
Well, just death. I mean, you know, I'm sending a large number of brilliant fighters. These are the greatest fighters in the world. I'd rather let the generals tell you, but a large number. We had 8 helicopters, and we had many other ships and planes. It was a large group, and again, this is a large group heading over very, very strong firepower areas where that was decision one. Will they make it? And they made it. But they took fire, but they made it. They didn't take, we don't believe, again, it was nation fire. We believe it was individual group fire or gang fire, as they call it. So they made it. So that was a big relief. Then they went in, they blasted their way in, you've heard. They blasted their way in so quickly, it was incredible, because this building was quite powerful, strong. They blasted their way in, and then all hell broke loose. It's incredible that nobody was killed or hurt. We had nobody even hurt. And that's why the dog was so great. We actually had a robot to go in the tunnel, but we didn't get it because we were tracking him very closely. But we had a robot just in case, because we were afraid he had a suicide vest on, and if you get close to him and he blows it up, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. He had a very powerful suicide vest.
Make decisions in the moment while troops were on the ground?
No, they had it just incredible. We were getting full reports on literally a minute-by-minute basis. Sir, we just broke in. Sir, the wall is down. Sir, you know, we've captured. Sir, 2 people are coming out right now, hands up, fighters. Then the 11 children out. Numerous people were dead within the building that they killed. Then it turned out they gave us a report. Sir, there's only 1 person in the building.